When they came back, Poppy knew she'd won. "You can go home, Poppy," Dr. Franklin said quietly, "at least until you develop any further symptoms. The nurse will tell your mother what to look out for." The first thing Poppy did was call James. He answered on the first ring and said, "How do you feel?" "Dizzy, but pretty good," Poppy said, whispering, because her mother was outside talking to a nurse. "I'm coming home." "I'll come over this afternoon," James said. "Call me when you think you'll have an hour or so alone. And, Poppy, don't tell Phil I'm coming." "Why not?" "I'll explain later." When she actually got home, it was strange. Cliff and Phil were there. Everybody was unusually nice to her, while still trying to pretend that nothing unusual was going on. Poppy had heard the nurse tell her mother that it was a good idea to try and maintain a normal routine. "It's like my birthday," Poppy thought dazedly. Like some terribly important birthday and graduation rolled into one. Every few minutes the doorbell would ring as another flower arrangement arrived. Poppy's bedroom looked like a garden. She felt badly for Phil. He looked so stricken and so brave. She wanted to comfort him the way she had comforted her mother, but how? "Come here," she ordered, opting for direct action, and when he obeyed, she hugged him tightly. "You'll beat this thing," he whispered. "I know you will. Nobody's ever had as much will to live as you do, and nobody's ever been as stubborn." It was then that Poppy realised just how terribly she was going to miss him. When she let go, she felt lightheaded. "Maybe you better lie down," Cliff said gently, and Poppy's mother helped her to the bedroom. "Does Dad know?" she asked as her mother moved around the bedroom, straightening things. "I tried to get hold of him yesterday, but the people at the station said he moved somewhere in Vermont. They don't know where." Poppy nodded. It sounded like her dad, always on the move. He was a DJ, when he wasn't being an artist or a stage magician. He split up with her mum because he wasn't good at being any of those things, or at least not good enough to get paid much. Cliff was everything Poppy's father wasn't: responsible, disciplined, hard-working. He fit in perfectly with Poppy's mum and Phil, so perfectly that sometimes Poppy felt like the odd one out in her own family. "I miss Dad," Poppy said softly. "I know. Sometimes I do too," her mother said, surprising her. Then she said firmly, "We'll find him, Poppy. As soon as he hears, he'll want to come." Poppy hoped so. She didn't suppose she'd get a chance to see him after. It wasn't until an hour or so before dinner time, when Phil and Cliff were out doing errands and her mother was taking a nap, that Poppy got the chance to call James. "I'll come right over," he said. "I'll let myself in." 10 minutes later he walked into Poppy's bedroom. Poppy felt strangely shy. Things had changed between her and James. They weren't simply best friends anymore. They didn't even say hi to each other. As soon as he came in, their eyes caught and met, and then, for an endless moment, they just looked at each other. This time, when Poppy felt the quick pang in her chest that always came when she saw James, it was a throb of pure sweetness. He cared about her. She could see it in his eyes. "Wait a minute, hang on," her mind whispered. "Don't jump the gun here. He cares about you, yes, but he didn't say he was in love with you. There's a difference." "Shut up," Poppy told her brain sullenly. Aloud she said, "How come you don't want Phil to know you were here?" James threw his light windbreaker over a chair and sat down on Poppy's bed. "Well, I just didn't want to be interrupted," he said with a gesture of dismissal. "How's the pain?" "It's gone," Poppy said. "Isn't that weird? It didn't wake me up at all last night. And there's something else. I think I'm starting to, well, read people's thoughts." James smiled slightly, just one corner of his mouth up. "That's good. I was worried." He broke off and went to turned Poppy's CD player on. Plaintive Bantu wailings emerged. "I was worried you didn't get enough blood last night," James said quietly, resuming his seat. "You'll have to take more this time, and so will I." Poppy felt something tremble inside her. Her revulsion was gone. She was still afraid, but that was only because of the consequences of what they were going to do. It wasn't just a way to get closer or to feed James. They were doing it to change Poppy. "The only thing I don't understand is why you never bit me before." Her tone was light, but as she spoke the words, she realized there was a serious question behind them. "I mean," she said slowly, "you did it with Michaela and Jacqueline, didn't you? And with other girls?" He looked away, but answered steadily, "I didn't exchange blood with them, but I fed on them, yes." "But not me?" "No. How can I explain?" He looked up at her. "Poppy, taking blood can be a lot of different things, and the elders don't want it to be anything but feeding. They say all you should feel is the joy of the hunt, and that's all I ever have felt before." Poppy nodded, trying to feel satisfied with this. She didn't ask who the elders were. "Besides, it can be dangerous. It can be done with hatred, and it can kill. Kill permanently, I mean." Poppy was almost amused by this. "You wouldn't kill." James stared at her. Outside it was cloudy, and the light in Poppy's bedroom was pale. It made James's face look pale too, and his eyes silver. "But I have," James said. His voice was flat and bleak. "I've killed without exchanging enough blood, so the person didn't come back as a vampire."